Hey everyone, I had such a great time chatting with Pastor Jeremiah that we ran well over the usual time frame, and we thought, why not turn this into 2 episodes? So I'm excited to be able to share part 1 with you now, and I want to encourage you to make sure that you come back next month for part 2, where we talk about diversity in the church. You won't want to miss it. Welcome to Moving Mountains, a podcast where we get to celebrate together the wins that different churches and the church as a whole have experienced. I'm Pam Flannery, and each month I get the amazing opportunity to talk with church leaders from all over the country, hearing the innovative and creative ways they're reaching their communities through the struggles and the wins in their ministry. Our hope is that you'll leave each episode with fresh ideas for your ministry, as well as the tools to put that plan into action so that you can impact your community further. Let's move mountains. Hi, my name is Pam Flannery. I lead our customer communities at PushPay. Today, I have the honor to introduce you to Jeremiah Betron, Operations Pastor at Irving Bible Church in Texas. Jeremiah, welcome. We are so happy to have you today, and I know our audience is going to glean a lot of wisdom from you.
Thank you, Pam. I'm excited to be here, excited to share.
Tell us a little bit about your background, kind of your journey and where what brought you to where you are today at the church.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I have to start with my family background. I'm married to Amanda. We have 2 little girls. We have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. 10-year-old acts like she is a 15-year-old, and our 4-year-old wants to be the 10-year-old. So they keep us very active. The joke in my house is we have a lot of words, a lot of emotions, all the ladies there. So keeps things fun and interesting.
That's great.
But yeah, my journey getting to IBC. So I went to seminary, and back in 2003, went through seminary, got my doctorate. And actually, Pam, I wanted to be a senior pastor. That was my goal. I wanted to be a senior pastor. I felt like that's what the Lord was calling me to. And so I pursued that with all my heart. I wanted to be that senior pastor. Graduated from seminary, and I landed my first church. Got into the church, had the opportunity to lead there, pastor there, preach there, and really loved it. It was a great church. It was a small church, smaller congregation, about 150, maybe 170 people there. Just a small church who loved us well, and we loved them, and really enjoyed being a part of their community. Really got to learn a lot with them and through them. Into my time there after 3 years, and moved back that was in northern states and Midwest states. And we moved back to Texas, where I got to be a co-lead pastor with a friend from seminary. And we gave that our best shot. It was something new. Co-lead pastoring was kind of something you weren't very familiar with. People weren't familiar with. And so we're going to give this co-lead pastoring thing a try. And so we literally split up our responsibilities and gave that a go. During that time there, found myself gravitating more toward the operations side of things, the administrative side of things, and not so much, I didn't love the preaching side. And I found myself not loving preaching as much as I love the admin side. And so there was something going on there in me as I was discovering myself, learning myself and my role in ministry. And it got to a point where I realized, the co-lead pastoring, the senior pastoring thing, while that's what I was driven for, I realized that's not what God designed me for. And so I started looking into opportunities where I could use that giftedness, where I could use the administrative giftedness that I felt like the Lord had put in my heart. And once I had that revelation that that's where I was supposed to go, I started seeing in my life, like, these are the patterns that the Lord had for me. Like, I was supposed to be in church administration. Started working on a doctorate in that regard. And then after 4 years at the church in Texas that I was a co-lead pastor at, I was invited to come to IBC and work here. So now I am the operations pastor here, and I think there are too many operations pastors in the church world, but that just means I get to oversee. I'm not the executive pastor. I'm the operations pastor. I work for the executive pastor, and I oversee finances, facilities, IT, safety and security, general administration, and the one that I'm really passionate about is generosity and stewardship. And so that's where a lot of my energy goes, generosity and stewardship. And so it's been a fun journey, one that I'm really grateful for, and I love the work that I do. I love to serve the church, the global church, in this way.
Well, you're definitely in your gift. because you inspired me. We spoke a couple weeks ago and you just really inspired me. And after we spoke, I actually went to your website because I was like, why is Jeremiah so excited? I want to see what they have going on. And of course, I know why you're excited because you shared some stories.
Yeah.
But I clicked on your annual report on your giving page on your website, irvingbible.org/give. I've never seen anything like it. I expected the usual, line upon line financial numbers, but I was pleasantly surprised. You have 9 colorful slides with pictures of people. You show the number of who've attended certain events or outreaches, the number of volunteers, how many salvations, baptism. There also was this heartfelt letter from Pastor Barry, your senior pastor. In fact, I'd like to read a couple lines from that if you don't mind,
Sure.
really
Yeah,
quick, and then I want you to share a little bit more about that. He says, throughout the scripture, God invites his people to remember where they've been and what he has done for them. In so doing, to celebrate the God who is always present, always faithful, and always working. This annual report is our effort to remember and rejoice in what God did and through IBC in 2019. So I hope that you'll join me in reading along and thanking God for his goodness. As you do, I hope you'll be encouraged and excited about what God has next for us. I love this report because it talks about where you've been, where you are now, where you're going. It really captures the heart of IBC, and it really showed me the impact that you're making in people. So I'd like for you to share. I'm sure your hand is all over this, just by the conversations we've had. So tell us a little bit about that, and why did you choose these slides with, you really went above and beyond. And I really sincerely hope that every pastor, especially those that are in the financial area, will go to your website, look at your annual report and model that, because it motivated me. I want to give, I love what you guys are doing. I want to be a part of that. So share how that came about and your vision for that.
Oh, well, Pam, so glad you went to the website and checked that out. Man, there's so much I could say about our giving web spot. One thing I would say is the intention behind our giving page, when people go to irvingbible.org/give, what we want them to see is that we're transparent, that we have everything out front. We put I can't remember if the audit is on there. We actually put our annual audit on there. We do an audit process every year. We put our annual report on there that shows our numbers, our audit. I mean, if somebody wants to go deep into our numbers, they can pull our audit and they will see financial numbers, and we're not ashamed to hide it. We have nothing to hide. Our numbers are there. And I think, in fact, the numbers show not what we have done, but what the Lord has done and what he is doing in our midst. And so it's fun to do that. We want to be open. We want to be transparent about all of those things. The other thing about the website is just that it's that spot where people can go to find all of the information about different ways to give. We have a lot of different options for giving. Not too many, and actually PushPay has helped us to tone that back a little bit. We used to have a ton of different options, but now we really focus on, you can give through our website, you can give through our PushPay platform, you can give through paper checks. A lot of people still love to give paper checks. They want that physical practice of putting a check in what we have, just offering boxes. And so the website gives that information for people. The annual report, though, I love that you picked that up, and I cannot take credit for the annual report in terms of, the look and feel of it. That is our comm team. We have an amazing comm team who goes above and beyond to make everything look spectacular. And I think they did a great job on our annual report. And so kudos to them. I want to just celebrate them and the work that they've done there. But as you picked up, Pam, in our annual report, we do capture everything that the Lord has done in the previous year. And so we want to celebrate those things. And why do we do that? Because we put numbers, but those numbers represent people. They represent lives that have been transformed. It represents not things that we have done. They represent things that God has done that we've got to partner with him in. And we want to celebrate that. Those are things to celebrate. That's a praise God moment. That's a yay God moment. That's something that God should get the glory for, and not us. And so we celebrate those things with those numbers. We celebrate anywhere from, the impact that's been had in our city, to the baptisms, to youth attending retreats, to where we are financially. It's so important to celebrate where we are financially. A lot of people give to the church But we need to express our gratefulness to them. I mean, people are making sacrifices a lot of times because they want to see the kingdom advance. They want to see the gospel shared. And so the annual report shows us, yeah, we are sharing the gospel. The gospel is being preached. Lives are being transformed. And it's because of the generosity of our people who gave sacrificially, they gave joyfully to the work of the ministry of this church and just the work of God's hand throughout the world.
Yeah, you've done a great job in your team. It really it's inspiring. I enjoyed it. I loved going through all the numbers and the pictures and their faces, and it just
Hmm.
there's, a picture speaks 1,000 words, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think you also shared, isn't there a way that you have set up giving as far as like your first, second, third time givers? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Pam, the way I describe it a lot of times with our staff is IBC we're going on our 60th year as a church. And
Congratulations. That's
thanks.
awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. We have a long, rich history, very well established in our community. And for so much of that time, it felt like the Lord just blessed us. We had people the Lord put on their hearts to give to the church. And it just seemed like, the gifts would come very easily. But Pam, we didn't have any sort of system in place to receive those gifts, to respond to those gifts, to properly acknowledge, the gifts that were given to the church. And we want to. And recognizing that we want to grow as a church, we thought, we need to take another step. We need to do something. We can't just be this church that just receives these gifts and doesn't do anything about it. But we didn't know what to do. We knew we needed some sort of system in place. We just didn't have that. We didn't know the steps to take. So we actually invited a consultant in a little bit over a year and a half ago to help us think through that, to help us to develop a system. And so we've worked with them several times per month over the last year and probably 3 months of developing a system of follow-up, of planning and implementation for a generosity and stewardship system. And part of that process was, like I said, that follow-up. How do you respond? Prior to the consultant, we knew, we need to follow up with our first-time givers. That's a big step. Let's follow up with them, say thank you for giving to the church a first time. We also knew we need to follow up with people who gave at high capacity, people who were giving much more than I could ever give, but people who are giving very significantly to the church. We had to have some sort of follow-up with them. And we were doing that. And that would be, maybe they would be invited to a coffee or lunch with Pastor Barry, or they would get a nice card in the mail or something like that. And we would always send to everybody, we would send like a quarterly letter to them and say thank you. But we knew that wasn't quite the system that we wanted. And so we started thinking through that and realizing, somebody gives a first time, that's really awesome. Love that they give a first time. But do they come back and give a second time? Because if they give a second time, that shows some sort of commitment. First
Sure.
time could be just like an off time. Like it could be somebody visiting. It could be grandma visiting for Easter. She could come in and it's like, oh, I love this church. I want to give a gift to the church. So she gave her first time. That's awesome. But did grandma come back and give a second time, or did some neighbor down the street who's heard about our church come back? They gave once and then they gave a second time. If they gave a second time, that means something is going on in their heart. We want to get to that. And so we acknowledge that. We send a note, or we send an email, we send a card, some sort of form of communication to that person who's given a second time, and we say thank you, and we do some follow-up with them, and we tell them, if we send an email, we send them a video of saying, thank you for your gift a second time. Here's what your gift is going toward. This is how your finances are being used for the advancement of the gospel. Because that's what's promised to them from the stage, that they're giving to the work of the church. And so we want them to know their investment is making a difference through the church. But we don't stop there. So we do a second time gift. We also watch for people who maybe have a lapse in giving. And so we follow up with them. So somebody is a consistent giver, and then all of a sudden they stop giving to the church. Well, that hurts a little bit. Like, why did that person stop giving? Are they upset with us? Are they disgruntled? Are they leaving the church? But Pam, I will tell you, more often than not, it's not necessarily that they're leaving. Sometimes that's the case. But if you're not monitoring somebody who is a lapsed giver, you potentially will lose them, or you have an opportunity to ask them about their life. And we never approach a lapsed giver and say, hey, you forgot to give to the church this week. But we approach them in a pastoral way And the fact that they stopped giving is a red flag to us that something's going on in their life, and we need to get to the bottom of that. We need to ask them. And so oftentimes I or Pastor Barry or somebody else from our team will reach out to a person who is a lapse giver and say, hey, you're just on my mind, praying about you. How are things going? And Pam, this one time I reached out to a guy. It took him a little bit to get back to me. It probably took about 2 weeks or so for him to respond to me, but he finally responded. And he said, Jeremiah, I'm so glad that you reached out to me, because this is what's going on. I can't continue to give to the church because my wife left me. And I've been in this spot, and I just cannot give to the church right now. And so I had this opportunity to sit down with his brother and, share this life moment with him and express to him, man, we totally understand. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't even ask him about the giving. I just asked him what's going on in his life. And he was like, well, Jeremiah, this is what's happening. And man, such a moment. I will tell you, Pam, that was probably 3 years ago. And I'm not kidding. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw a $1,000 check come in from him that he's still plugging in the church.
That's great.
He submitted a check. He turned in a check. He's back at it. Life is back on track for him. And, we could have ignored him.
Sure.
But we didn't. Yeah. We entered life with him. We made sure that he was plugged into community. We cared for him. We loved him. We supported him. And he's still here. And that's what it is. It's not about the dollars. I don't care about the dollars, Pam. We're not in a money-making business. We're in a life transformation business. And so this is an opportunity for us to partner with him in what he wants to do in the world. And he wants to transform lives.
As church leaders, you want to do everything you can to engage with each person that walks through your doors and encourage their spiritual growth. But connecting with your members isn't simple, and knowing where they are in their faith journey is even harder. You need data and insights to help cultivate deeper connections with your church community. That's why we developed the Donor Development Dashboard. The Donor Dashboard allows your teams to quickly and easily view key metrics in real time to discover new givers, see who's donating regularly, and perhaps most importantly, identify who might need someone to reach out to them. Have they moved? Having financial hardship? Lost their job? The dashboard also suggests action steps based on best practices from pioneering churches, allowing you to connect with your members in more personal and meaningful ways. Because in the end, it's that kind of connection that creates community in your ministry and in His kingdom. I want to thank Pastor Jeremiah for chatting with me. I honestly had such a great time with him, and I'm excited to be able to share the rest of our talk in the next episode.
We want to become a multi-ethnic movement of missionary disciples who are formed in the way of Jesus for the sake of the world. In fact, that's our mission statement. That's who we want to become. We want to be this multi-ethnic church.
This has been Push Pay's Moving Mountain podcast, real talk from church leaders about overcoming challenges and growing their ministries. If you'd like to learn more about Church Stack or any of the features mentioned in our podcast, visit us at pushpay.com. Make sure you subscribe so that you can get notified whenever a new episode comes out. You don't want to miss out on any of these great conversations with amazing people. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.